Step aside now. You're flagged, do you hear me? One more move and you're off this flight. Don't stare me down, take your attitude and get out of my lane.
First class, gate 12. The agent plants a palm on the stanchion, double beep from her scanner, then a frown. Guest only flag. Step aside. His boarding pass shows 2, A, clear, check, ID ready. Security edges in, hand to radio. The PA chirps, non-compliant passenger delaying boarding, phones lift in the crowd. He doesn't argue. He sets the pass on the counter, hits dial, and says, level, log everything. Speaker on, ops, I need on-system receipts, badge taps, PNR edits, PA audio, a beat of terminal noise. Then the voice replies, copy, freezing overrides at gate 12, one call. First class at gate 12 inches, a busy US hub, morning traffic hums under the fluorescent strips, the board cycles from on time to now boarding. A gate agent steps in front of the lane and plants her palm on the stanchion as if it were a stop sign. Her scanner gives a double beep that means nothing more than try again, yet she frowns like it is a verdict. Guest only, she says. Step aside for additional verification. He is calm. Black CEO, mid-50s, navy suit that reads Quiet Authority. He sets his phone face down and places the boarding pass on the counter. Seat 2A, confirmed. His ID is open to the photo. Clear check passed earlier at security. His carry-on is the airline approved size with a metal tag from a dozen previous routes. He does not raise his voice. He does not perform outrage for the crowd. Security drifts closer. One officer rests a hand on his radio. The other studies the CEO as if waiting for a reason to intervene. The crowd begins to notice. A few passengers ask, what happened? Someone mutters that first class is delayed. A couple of phones rise to shoulder height. The public address chime trips, and a neutral voice says boarding is paused for a non-compliant passenger. The word non-compliant floats above the gate like a label no one can peel off. The agent keeps talking about policy. She repeats phrases that sound official. Random re-verification, fraud flag, weight distribution. She points at the display, but never at a rule number. She waves through 2 other passengers with a brief glance at their phones. Double beeps again for him. Guest only, step aside. He lets the pause work for him. He slides his phone into his palm and taps a single contact. The call connects faster than the agent can finish the next sentence. His tone is level. Log everything. I need on-system receipts, badge taps, PNR edits, PA audio from this gate. The phone goes to speaker. A voice answers with a crisp copy. Stand by. Provide the agent ID and timestamp. The CEO rotates the agent nameplate toward the camera of his phone and states the time from the gate marquee. The security officer says, "Sir," and then stops as if waiting to see where the power flows. The junior agent at the back counter glances up. He looks familiar with the software screens. He has the posture of someone who cares about getting it right. He opens his mouth, then closes it, then inches closer until he is within normal conversational distance. Under his breath, he says, "The manifest shows 2A in your name. The hold is manual. I can confirm on system if asked." He looks worried but steady. The speaker voice returns. We have the station logs. We also have CCTV from Zone B aimed at this counter. Do you want proof displayed to the supervisor or emailed to compliance and ops simultaneously? The CEO says both. The crowd's murmur shifts from suspicion to curiosity. Someone whispers that this is about to turn. The agent stiffens. She signals toward security as if to push the process along. The officer keeps his voice even. Let us all take a breath. The phone crackles again. Overrides at gate 12 are now frozen for audit. Boarding will resume after verification. Preserve the camera feeds, the PA recording, and the keystroke history for the last 15 minutes. The words are plain and decisive. The gate area stills in that way airports sometimes do when everyone is listening to a call they cannot fully hear. The agent reaches for a laminated binder. She flips to a page and taps a vague paragraph about discretion. The junior staffer clears his throat and says quietly that the policy requires equal application across customers on the same flight. He says the hold was placed with a manual note. The CEO nods once and thanks him by name. The name lands across the counter like a protective layer. The crowd hears it and files it away. The supervisor arrives with a tight smile. The phone on speaker identifies her badge number before she can introduce herself. The voice says, "We have the intercom transcript and the manifest edits. A package is being sent to your inbox and to legal." The supervisor blinks. She looks at the agent. She looks at the passengers. The non-compliant label dissolves into the air. The CEO remains still. No raised chin, no finger pointing, only that same even line of voice. Implement the standard response. Terminate access for the staff member pending review. Freeze manual overrides at this station for 72 hours. Log every artifact. He slides the boarding pass back into his wallet. He sets the phone down. He does not ask for apologies. He asks for standards. The public address chime returns. Boarding first class will now continue, beginning with seats 1A through 2F. The officer steps back. The crowd lowers their phones. The junior staffer exhales. The plane is still at the gate. The story is now in the system where it belongs. Before the flight and the crowd, there is the reason this trip matters. The CEO is heading to a client summit that will lock in a service contract measured in 8 figures over the next 3 years. A systems upgrade, coast-to-coast routes, thousands of passengers better served if the deal goes through. The schedule is tight by design. He planned a cushion of an hour at the hub, a seat that lets him step off first, and a car waiting at arrivals. Everything is set, so the only variable is performance, not permission. That is why the hold at Gate 12 is not just an inconvenience. It is a test of whether the rules can be bent around a person instead of applied to a process. He thinks back through the morning. Clear check verified. ID verified. Payment through a corporate account with fraud controls stronger than consumer cards. The reservation has his traveler number, his seat preference, his meal request logged a week ago. The airline had already sent a courtesy text welcoming him back. Every step was boring and reliable, and that is how air travel should be. Reliability is luxury. Now the agent stands in front of that reliability and dresses hesitation as policy. She says random re-verification. She says potential fraud. She says guest only. None of those phrases points to a code in the manual. They are soft words that press hard when spoken with confidence. Watch how this works in public. A label is placed. Non-compliant passenger. The label invites security. Security invites a crowd. A crowd invites shame. Most people fold at the edge of shame. They step aside. They apologize for a thing they did not do. They leave the line without a receipt. The system learns that the label works. This is the loop he refuses to feed. He is not here to win an argument. He is here to produce records that correct behavior the next time, even if he is not in the room. He keeps his voice at meeting volume. You can hear it on a voicemail, even quality, no spikes. He asks for receipts the way a surgeon asks for instruments. On the call, Ops already has the station ID and the gate zone. They are pulling keystroke history from the terminal. Every time the agent tapped a key, the system wrote a timestamp and a username. He knows this because his company builds software with the same audit trails. Systems that matter always leave tracks. People who are certain they will not be checked behave as if tracks do not exist. The junior staffer, Jamal, edges into the frame and becomes more than background. He has the look of someone who has been told to smile and move faster while another person cuts corners behind the desk. He saw the agent wave 3 other passengers through on quick glances at a phone screen. He saw the release code for them, a shortcut reserved for known customers with verified profiles. The difference was not documentation, the difference was discretion. Jamal is ready to say this out loud if the process invites him. That matters. A truth that stays whispered becomes folklore. A truth spoken on system becomes policy. The supervisor is on her way. Operations has already sent the package to her inbox and to compliance, which means the next moves are no longer private. That is why the agent digs into a laminated binder now. The binder offers reassurance to anyone who has not read it carefully. It has words like may and at our discretion and for the safety and comfort of all guests. It does not have a clause that says hold only him while others sail by. The binder cannot protect a choice made outside of rule. The recording on the phone will show that distinction clearly. The CEO makes eye contact with the officer who has been hovering. "Sir," he says, "I appreciate your presence. For the record, I am not refusing any lawful instruction. I am requesting equal application of the boarding process and preservation of evidence for review." The officer nods without changing his expression. The radio at his shoulder hisses with updates. "Stand by," the dispatcher says. Compliance is monitoring. The tone of the space changes the way air changes before a storm. It is not louder, it is alert. He thinks about the people watching. Other passengers, some traveling for the first time in months, some carrying heavy news, some just trying to get home. He is not their hero, and he does not need them to be his jury. He needs them to see that a calm insistence on records is not aggression. It is citizenship in a system that promises fairness. If the only time the system documents itself is when someone loses control, then the only lesson the system learns is about volume. Today, it will learn about verification. Ops comes back on the line with specifics. We have a manual guest-only tag applied to your record at 1,402 and 17 seconds. We have 2 other records cleared without secondary review at 1,403 and 1,404. We have a public address announcement at 1,406 describing a non-compliant passenger. All 3 items are preserved and linked to station credentials. The CEO says thank you. Please include the camera angle on the counter and the boarding lane. Please notify legal that I am requesting gate-wide recertification on discretionary holds. The voice says copy. A formality, but the kind that moves budgets. He glances at Jamal and asks if he is willing to confirm what he saw on system. Jamal nods. Steady now. The small nod is a hinge in the story. It opens a path beyond blame toward structure. The CEO does not want an apology amplified into content for strangers. He wants procedure that protects the next traveler whose voice will not be believed until a badge log speaks for them. That is the premise, and these are the stakes. A seat is a seat, a standard is a standard. The difference between the two is whether someone can switch it off without leaving a trace. Today, that switch has a light on it. The overplay starts quietly, the way most overplays do. The agent tightens her posture and repeats the same phrases with extra emphasis. For your safety, for the integrity of boarding. She points to the stanchion as if it were an authority in itself and gestures toward a separate lane that does not exist. She keeps her scanner hovering just above the barcode, not quite reading it, as if hesitation could become policy by repetition. The crowd hears tone instead of rule, and tone often wins until a record interrupts it. Security edges closer and adopts the stance that turns a request into a warning without a word. One officer squares his shoulders toward the CEO while the other watches the phones in the crowd. The officer uses the practiced opener, "Sir, please cooperate." The CEO meets the gaze and answers in level phrases that would pass any body cam review. "I am cooperating. I am standing where you asked. I am asking for equal application of the boarding process and for this station to preserve records for audit." The officer hears the second sentence and knows it is the one that matters. He nods once and holds position, palm open. The PA chime hits again. The agent uses the word incident. Boarding is delayed due to a passenger incident. Incident is a big word for what is, in the logs, a manual hold on one PNR. That mismatch is the overplay. It widens the gap between what the crowd thinks is happening and what the system knows is happening. A passenger in line asks if it is a safety issue. The agent does not answer. Another asks if the flight will miss its slot. The agent gestures at the CEO with a small nod that says, "Cause without saying it." That is the oldest move in soft power. Make someone carry the weight of your choice. Jamal shifts closer to the counter and opens a screen the camera can see. His hand is steady. He taps into the manifest and highlights seat 2A with the CEO's name. He scrolls and stops on the hold note. Manual guest-only flag applied at 1,402 to 17. He does not editorialize. He says what is on screen in a voice meant for the record, not the room. The officer hears it. The room hears it. The agent hears it and interrupts to suggest that the system sometimes glitches. Glitch is the word you use when a trail exists and you hope to blur it. Ops comes back on speaker in time to save the conversation from spiraling into he said versus she said. We have confirmed the hold was manual by this station. We are pushing stills from CCTV Zone B to your inbox now. Please ask the station to acknowledge receipt. The phone screen lights with a thumbnail of the gate counter captured from above. Time code matches the hold. The supervisor, who has just reached the edge of the area, stops moving. She watches herself enter the frame in the still from a minute earlier. That is the moment the overplay meets the mirror. The agent doubles down because doubling down sometimes works with crowds. She says the CEO refused to comply with a verification step. The room tilts for a second. Doubt always gets a little air. The CEO does not argue the claim because arguing is a trap. He states a single fact. I provided ID, boarding pass, and prior security clearance. The officer nods again, a little larger this time. The nod is a breadcrumb for the body cam and for anyone who cares about accuracy. Jamal adds that 2 other passengers were cleared with a quick scan and no secondary questions within the same 3-minute window. He has the times open, he reads them out, that closes the window for ambiguity. The supervisor tries to reclaim control. She introduces herself and says the station retains discretion to ensure comfort and safety. Ops answers on speaker with a calm correction. Discretion must be applied consistently. Records show selective application. We have frozen manual overrides at this gate for 72 hours pending audit. Please proceed with standard boarding. The word frozen lands harder than any raised voice. It removes the lever that made the overplay possible. The crowd eases back. Someone apologizes to no one in particular for assuming the worst. The officer steps a half foot away from the CEO without making a show of it. The agent scans the boarding pass again, and the scanner gives a single clean tone. It always would have. The overplay had nothing to do with capability, only with choice. And now the choice lives where it should, inside a log that does not forget. Authority doesn't arrive with volume, it arrives with symmetry. The call on speaker yields a second voice, deeper and slower, introduced only as legal. Ops remains on the line. The 2 speak like people who do this often. Ops confirms the freeze on manual overrides at gate 12. Legal asks 3 questions designed to box the moment into evidence. Do we have a clean view of the counter? Do we have the agent's credential string? Do we have the public address audio cache? Ops answers yes in sequence and cites the retention window. The room changes even though nothing moves. You can feel people decide to let the system do what the system is for. The supervisor steps fully into the frame. She starts with a practiced opener about guest experience and station discretion. Legal interrupts once, politely, and requests her badge number for the record. She gives it. Ops reads back the number and the local time to the second. The officer at the edge of the lane taps his body cam to ensure the tiny light is steady. The CEO doesn't step forward. He stands where he has been the whole time, one palm on the counter, boarding pass back in his wallet, phone on speaker between them. His sentence is the same one he started with. Log everything. Ops sends a packet. The supervisor's tablet pings. The subject line is plain. Gate 12, selective hold review. Inside the packet is a still from CCTV Zone B with the gate counter, the stanchion, and the agent at the terminal. Time code 14 hours, 2 minutes, and 17 seconds. There is also a manifest slice showing seat 2A, linked to the CEO's name and traveler number, and a log entry of a manual guest-only tag. Legal asks the supervisor to confirm receipt and to acknowledge that manual flags require consistent application across customers on the same flight. She says, acknowledged, careful with each syllable. The agent who triggered the hold tries to reframe the issue as a policy necessity. She uses the words integrity and safety and procedure. Legal asks for the procedure number. She says she will have to check. Jamal, the junior staffer, is still at the back counter, eyes steady on the screen. Legal invites any staff member to read what they see on system for the record. Jamal states what is on his screen without commentary. Manifest shows 2A in the customer's name. Manual hold at 14 hours, 2 minutes, and 17 seconds. 2 other customers cleared without secondary at 14:3 and 14:4. The officer hears it and writes down the times on a small notepad even though the body cam is recording. Redundancy is part of real accountability. Ops asks the CEO for a preferred scope on corrective actions. He doesn't add flourishes. Standard response, Terminate access for the staff member pending review. Freeze discretionary upgrades and manual flags at this station for 72 hours. Log and preserve CCTV, PA audio, and keystrokes for the last 30 minutes. Legal adds a fourth item. Recertify the station on selective holds and equal application within 14 days. The supervisor nods. She has a hand on her tablet like it might shield her from the clarity of the words landing on it. There is a pause while systems catch up. The overhead board flips through statuses. The officer gets a radio update that compliance has eyes on the feed. The crowd has gone very quiet, the kind of quiet you get in a courtroom when the stenographer is the most important person in the room. The agent who made the call reaches for the laminated binder again, but this time she does not open it. There is nothing in the binder that can outrun a timestamp. Legal asks one last question, meant for later auditors. Was any physical contact made, any raised voices, any refusal to comply with a lawful instruction? The officer answers no to each in turn. The answer matters because it closes a door on a future narrative that would have turned this moment into a personality contest. This is not about personality. This is about a system that can be measured. Ops announces that boarding may resume according to standard order and that the hold on the CEO's record is removed. The scanner chirps a clean tone when the supervisor tests a sample pass. The crowd exhales. The CEO thanks Ops and Legal and leaves the line open for the next steps. He is not in a hurry to win. He is careful to finish the paperwork in real time. Authority has arrived, and it is not a person. It is a record, and it just took the room. The reveal does not roar. It clicks. First, the supervisor's tablet pings again with a subject line that would look boring to anyone not living this moment. Gate 12 artifacts linked. Inside are 3 files and a short note from Ops. The still from CCTV Zone B shows the counter, the stanchion, and the agent leaning into the terminal. The timestamp reads 14 hours, 2 minutes, and 17 seconds. A red box overlays her hands as she keys in a command. Overlaid text identifies the workstation by device ID and the credential string tied to the login. It is not a ghost action. It has a name. Next, a manifest slice renders on the tablet in crisp Airline font. Seat 2A, traveler number ending in 41, pre-check indicator, and a status tag that says hold guest only in a gray box. Below it is a line item that records who placed the hold and how. Manual flag applied at 14 hours, 2 minutes, and 17 seconds by station credential GB12A. Keystroke history shows a matching entry. Action code HG applied. No secondary documentation uploaded. Overrides available. If there were a system error, this is where the gap would show. There is no gap. The note lives inside the record like a dot of ink on white cloth. It is not coming out. Then, the audio. The PA cache file carries the chime and the announcement from 3 minutes later. Boarding is paused for a non-compliant passenger. Legal has transcribed it with timecode and attached the small waveform that looks like a heartbeat. There is a second clip, shorter, from the gate intercom, captured when the agent radioed for security. The wording is standard until it is not. It steers the response without stating a rule. The transcript renders it in neutral text with a bracketed tag for tone. The point is not to embarrass anyone. The point is to keep words from slipping away. Ops adds a fourth element because good systems add context. 3 anonymized boarding records from the same flight, time-stamped 14 hours, 3 minutes, and 8 seconds, 14 hours, 3 minutes, and 41 seconds, and 14 hours, 4 minutes, and 2 seconds, each cleared with a simple scan, no secondary. Device ID matches the same terminal. The contrast is blunt without commentary. The supervisor reads, and you can watch a calculation happen behind her eyes. The binder cannot talk to this. Jamal stands steady at the back counter and mirrors what the packet shows. He opens his own screen to the keystroke log. He reads the action code and the timestamp aloud for the record. He scrolls to the 3 quick clears and reads those times aloud too. His voice is the same for each line, as if he were reading out passenger weights for a weight and balance check. Straight, even, real. The officer listens like a court reporter, pen following his words to a notebook, even though the body cam collects it all. The agent who placed the hold says the system sometimes mislabels when a profile sync fails. Legal answers on speaker in a tone that does not rise or fall. If there was a sync error, we would see an upstream alert and a downstream rollback. We see neither. What we see is manual input and selective application. The sentence is short enough to fit on a slide. That is not an accident. A new message arrives. Ops has compiled a quick chain of custody note. Camera feeds locked at 14:15, PA audio exported with hash, terminal keystrokes exported with hash. The word hash matters here. It means if anyone tries to swap a file later, the math will refuse the swap. The supervisor initials the receipt on her tablet with a fingertip. The motion is small and decisive. You can feel the room exhale without anyone making a sound. The CEO does not narrate victory. He acknowledges the artifacts the way a pilot acknowledges a checklist. Thank you. Keep the packet with compliance and station leadership. Please include training clips that show consistent application examples. He is not spiking a ball, he is building a floor. The crowd's phones tilt down. Someone whispers, "I did not know it logged like that." That is the note worth hearing. The purpose of a reveal is not spectacle. It is clarity that lasts longer than a moment, a clarity that travels with the next shift and the next passenger and the next decision about whether a label becomes a lane. Verdict lands without theatrics. The CEO does not change his volume or his stance. He keeps the phone on speaker and speaks in sentences that will read the same on a transcript as they sound in the room. Implement the standard response for selective hold misuse at this station. Terminate access for the staff member pending review. Freeze manual overrides and discretionary upgrades for 72 hours. Log and preserve every artifact from the last 30 minutes and extend retention to 30 days. He adds one more line, measured and precise. Initiate gate-wide recertification on equal application and discretionary holds within 14 days, with completion reported to compliance and operations. Ops answers with a simple copy. Badge deactivation for the staff member will take effect in 1 minute. Coverage is being moved from the pool. Manual overrides are already frozen at gate 12 and mirrored across the station's other gates for consistency. The officer at the line hears the words badge deactivation and does what trained people do when the system is taking care of itself. He steps back, radio quiet. Authority has a place, and it is not the middle of the lane. Legal adds the guardrails that keep a verdict from becoming a vendetta. The staff member retains due process under policy and law. This is an access termination, not an employment termination, pending investigation. Union notification, if applicable, will be documented. The packet will include exact timestamps, device IDs, and credential strings to ensure the inquiry is about facts, not impressions. The supervisor nods because there is nothing else to do when paperwork is clear and time-stamped. The agent who triggered the hold tries once more to reshape the moment. She says she was protecting the boarding area. Legal does not argue intent. Intent is a moving target. Application is not. Legal repeats the short line that now sits like a label on the counter. Discretion must be consistent. Records show selective application. Ops confirms the freeze has propagated. A small tone sounds from the workstation as the access level drops. The terminal requests a different login. That is how accountability feels when it is built into a system. No drama, just a prompt that no longer accepts the old key. Jamal clears his throat and offers to assist with boarding under standard order. The supervisor agrees and positions him on the primary scanner. He scans a sample pass, and the tone is clean, the way it is supposed to be when no one is improvising policy. The PA chime returns to do what it was designed to do. Boarding first class will now continue, beginning with seats 1A through 2F. Passengers settle, phones tilt down. The temperature drops in a way you can measure. The CEO does not deliver a speech. He makes eye contact with the officer and the supervisor and says, "Thank you for preserving the record and for resuming standard boarding." He asks Ops to include the training clips that show correct use of manual holds and equal application across customer profiles. He asks Legal to route the packet not only to compliance but to station leadership with a note that budgets tied to customer experience metrics will remain frozen until recertification is complete. Quiet power is not a threat, it is a calendar invite and a budget line. A new message arrives on the supervisor's tablet. A receipt more than a flourish. Chain of custody documented, CCTV, Zone B, locked at 14:15, PA audio exported with hash, Terminal keystrokes exported with hash. Badge deactivation logged at 1416. The word hash appears again because in the world that actually changes. Math is a better witness than memory. The supervisor initials the receipt. The officer writes the same times in his notebook even though the camera is rolling. 2 records are better than 1. The agent steps away from the counter to a neutral space by the wall. No escort, no spectacle, just absence from the system that was misused. That is the point of access control. You do not need to make a person small when you can make a process exact. Jamal works the scanner with a steady rhythm. The line moves, the flight is still on time, the room feels different because a verdict was not a headline, it was an alignment. The CEO retrieves his boarding pass, already cleared. He does not ask for special handling or public apologies. He asks for the same rule for everyone and for the record to teach the next shift. He lifts the phone a final time. Thank you, Ops. Thank you, Legal. Keep me copied on recertification dates. Then he sets the phone down and the story moves from air to archive, which is exactly where verdicts belong. Fallout starts as paperwork and ends as culture. Ops pushes a follow-up packet to the supervisor, the station manager, and corporate customer experience. Subject line is plain again. Gate 12, corrective actions. Inside are 4 sections and a calendar map. First, the freeze. Manual overrides and discretionary upgrades at this station remain disabled for 72 hours. The effect is immediate and measurable. Every exception must route through Ops with a case number, and each case number generates a 1-page artifact. The system becomes louder than any voice. Second, the audit. Compliance schedules a targeted review of selective holds for the last 90 days at this hub. They will pull a random sample and a flagged sample, compare rates across profiles, and score each station on equal application. Scores below threshold trigger mandatory recertification. The supervisor reads this with the focus of someone realizing the rubric will land on her desk, not her gut. Ops has attached examples, good and bad anonymized clips that show exactly how policy should read in real life. The point is not fear. The point is predictability. Third, training. Legal and customer experience. Add a joint module to the next shift briefing. 10 minutes, 3 case studies, 1 check for understanding. The module is direct. What counts as verification, how discretion must be applied, and what language to avoid in PA announcements when a situation is not a safety incident. A short script replaces non-compliant passenger with boarding paused for verification. Calm words create calm rooms. The module ships with a checklist you can print and tape to the terminal. A bored agent following a good checklist is better than a confident agent writing their own rules. Fourth, budgets. The station's incentive pool tied to customer experience and on-time boarding is frozen until recertification completes. It is not punishment, it is alignment. If the metrics reward speed over accuracy, the system will pick speed. Now the incentive is to document accurately, apply consistently, and let the logs earn the release. Finance adds a single line. Funds unlock when compliance marks the station green. Dates and signatures sit under it like rivets. The CEO stays in the lane long enough to see the first receipts land. He thanks Jamal by name again and asks Ops to note his assistance on record. The supervisor hears it, looks at Jamal, and writes an interim assignment. Primary scanner for the remainder of the departure window and shadow lead for the next 2 gates. It is not a medal, it is access to responsibility. Quiet power promotes the person who protected standards, not the person who spoke the loudest. He turns to the officer and says, "For the record, thank you for keeping the space steady." The officer nods. He will file a brief that mirrors the timestamps, not the opinion of the crowd. 2 records, same facts. That is how stories survive contact with time. Passengers begin to board again. A few offer quick nods, not to make a hero, but to acknowledge a repair. One man whispers to his partner that he didn't know the system kept keystrokes. Another says he thought calling legal was drama until he heard the word hash. The crowd is learning the difference between spectacle and procedure. Airports teach millions of people at once. Today, the lesson slipped in between boarding groups. On speaker, Ops asks one last question. Do you want this treated as a one-off incident or flagged for a hub-wide standards review? The CEO does not hesitate. Hub-wide. Quiet tone, clear scope. Legal adds the logistics, dates for recertification windows, mandatory attendance for leads, and follow-up checks 2 weeks later. The calendar invite pings across the station. Accountability is now an appointment, which means it will happen. The agent whose access was terminated waits off to the side, hands clasped, watched by no one in particular. Due process is in motion, not a public performance. The binder stays shut. The terminal hums. Jamal keeps scanning, crisp rhythm, passenger after passenger. He does not grandstand, and that is the point. Standards do not need a spotlight, they need repetition. As the CEO walks down the jet bridge, his phone vibrates. A short message from Ops, recert dates attached. Jamal recommended for shift lead consideration. He replies with 2 words that sit at the center of this series, thank you. On the wall near the door, a small sign reminds everyone of the airline's values. For once, the room matches the sign. The system will not remember the faces an hour from now, but it will remember the times, the device IDs, the frozen toggles, the recert modules, and the budget line that didn't move until policy did. That is the shape of fallout here, measured, logged, and pointed toward the next traveler who needs fairness without a phone on speaker. The jet bridge hums with that hollow, carpeted quiet as first class begins to move. The CEO lets 2 passengers go ahead. He's not racing a clock anymore. At the door, the lead flight attendant nameplate visible, posture, steady greets him with the rhythm of someone who has seen a lot and overreacts to very little. Welcome aboard, Mr. Redacted. We have your 2A ready. If you need a minute, we're here. No wink, no apology tour, just service done exactly right. That tone matters because it resets the room without pretending nothing happened. Inside the cabin, the purser checks her tablet. She has what she needs. Manifest released, hold removed, notation added that boarding was paused for verification, not a safety incident. That phrasing is deliberate. It means no rumor migrates into in-flight chat, no side-eye from a stew of half-truths. She offers a water, confirms meal preference, and asks if he'd like the cabin kept low profile during taxi. He says normal is fine. Normal is the point. Back at the gate, the last pieces of aftercare click into place. Ops opens an incident ticket with 2 tags, selective hold and language on PA. The ticket auto-assigns to station leadership and compliance. It includes Jamal's on-system statement and invites him to append anything he wants to add before end of shift. That invitation is not decoration, it's a way to protect a truth keeper from being edited out by the next weather cycle. A memo drafts itself from the packet. 3 lines, plain English. 1. Discretionary holds require consistent application. See examples. 2. Replace non-compliant passenger with boarding paused for verification when safety is not implicated. 3. Keystroke logs and device IDs are reviewed in selective hold cases. Treat terminals like cameras. The memo lands in the lead group chat and the break room printer queue. Culture does not change from a speech, it changes from a sentence taped at eye level. Finance pings the station manager with the budget note already discussed. Incentive pool remains frozen until recertification is marked complete. The line includes the date window and the checkbox for release. It has signatures from Ops, Legal, and CX. The manager can't argue with a line that ties behavior to dollars and gives the path back. She can only walk it. Union rep gets a courtesy notice, access termination pending review, due process preserved, evidence listed with hashes. The point is not to strip a person of dignity, it is to separate access from intent while facts are gathered. That transparency keeps the inevitable meeting from becoming a rumor mill later. When rules feel like a trap, people get defensive. When rules look like a checklist with timestamps, people can do their jobs. Jamal scans through the boarding groups with a calm, metronomic rhythm. The supervisor shadows him and between passengers asks a quiet question, would you be open to shift lead training if a slot opens? Jamal nods once, says yes, and keeps scanning. The recognition travels as an assignment, not a compliment. That is how you keep a good person in a system that almost taught him to look away. On the flight deck, the captain gets a short ACARS note from gate. Boarding pause resolved, no safety implications, paperwork complete. He glances at the clock, checks taxi time, and decides they still make the departure window. No drama bleeds onto the runway. The logbook stays neat. The cabin door closes with the satisfying seal that means the next 20 minutes are about checklists and coordination, not narratives. In 2A, the CEO slides his phone to airplane mode and flags one email to his team. Brief note on hub-wide recert dates, the language change for PA, and a thank you line with Jamal's name spelled correctly. He is not crowdsourcing outrage. He is distributing a standard. He types 2 words he uses like a signature in this series: log everything. Taxi starts. The safety demo runs. The cabin lights dip the way they always do. A passenger across the aisle catches his eye and offers a small nod. Not fanfare, not alliance, just acknowledgement that something was real and then repaired. That is the aftercare you can actually measure. A cabin that forgets the spectacle because the system remembered the steps. As Wheels Up approaches, Ops closes the loop with one last message to the station: audit calendar attached. Training module live for next shifts. Language update effective immediately. The email ends with a line that fits on a lanyard card. Discretion is a tool only when it's consistent. Otherwise, it's a bias. Print that, tape it up, move on. The airplane rotates, climbs, and the story moves where it belongs off the floor into the fabric of how the next gate works. Cruise altitude turns the cabin into a study hall. The CEO opens his laptop, not to post, but to shape what will outlast the flight. He drafts a short internal note to his operations and ethics teams with a subject he has used for years. Standards, not stories. He lists what matters and in what order. The freeze is active at the hub for 72 hours. The audit will pull 90 days of selective hold data. The language on PA has been corrected. He adds a line about Jamal and uses the phrase, on system truth keeper. He asks HR to coordinate a recognition path that is quiet and durable. Shift lead training. Then a review in 60 days. He hits send and closes the lid. He is not trying to win the news cycle. He is trying to bend the curve. Down on the ground, the hub begins to move differently. Station leadership posts the 3-line memo to the break room and the handheld devices that live at each gate. Replace non-compliant with paused for verification when safety is not implicated. Apply discretionary holds consistently across profiles on the same flight. Treat terminals like cameras. Everything you type has a timestamp. It is not inspiring copy. That is the point. The simpler the sentence, the more it gets used. Compliance builds the audit pull with 2 filters: random sample to catch drift, flag sample to test the edges. They add a comparison across shifts and days to see if selective holds spike at certain hours, certain teams, or after certain customer prompts. They do not go fishing for villains. They go looking for patterns that resist training. The report will color code stations and highlight outliers. Red means recertification with a deadline. Green means keep going. Yellow means watch again in 2 weeks. The color is not the verdict. The behavior that follows is. Legal drafts, the due process packet for the agent whose access was terminated. It includes timestamps, device IDs, and the hash list. It also includes a statement of rights under company policy. The tone can carry both accountability and dignity when the words are specific. They schedule a meeting with representation present. No podium, no apology theater, just a clear frame for facts. If she can show a system fault, the logs will show it. If she cannot, the logs will still show what happened. Clarity is not cruel. The station manager opens a budget dashboard and sees the freeze reflected as a gray band across the incentive line. It will not lift until compliance marks recert complete. Inside the dashboard is a bright green box labeled How to Unlock with a checklist that mirrors the memo and the module. She knows what to do because the money tells her. The lesson lands not as shame, but as sequence. On a push notification to staff devices, CX publishes 2 one-minute clips. One clip shows a perfect verification done in 30 seconds. Scan, confirm ID when required, equal application, neutral PA language if boarding pauses. The other clip shows a bad example with a note about what went wrong and when to ask for help. The voiceover is steady and practical. It does not scold. It treats workers like adults who can fix things when given a picture. Back in 2A, the CEO writes a second email shorter than the first. To board and owners, subject line, standard response, baseline. He outlines the 3 moves: terminate, freeze, log, and the 2 additions: recert window and budget alignment. He explains why dollars follow standards. If a metric rewards speed without verification, discretion will drift. Tie the incentive to accuracy first, then speed. He signs off with a reminder that fairness is cheaper than damage control. No one argues that on a balance sheet. Jamal finishes the departure window and helps with a tight turn at the adjacent gate. The supervisor shadows him and watches as he applies policy evenly to a family with a stroller, to a frequent flyer on a tight connection, and to a college kid with a photo of a barcode instead of a boarding pass. Each interaction is fast, neutral, logged. The rhythm is the same regardless of face or status marker. That is what consistency looks like when you can hear it. When the aircraft lands, an automated note waits in the CEO's inbox. Hub-wide standards review initiated. Recert windows posted. Language update effective. Jamal nominated for shift-led training. He forwards it to his team with 2 words that have become his shorthand for what just happened and what needs to keep happening. Keep logging. He exits the aircraft without ceremony. No handshake lines, no cameras, no speech. A driver meets him with a sign and a schedule. The summit will take the next 6 hours, and the result will touch thousands of passengers who will never know about Gate 12. That is the right ratio. Make the fix 1 moment at a time. Let the benefit multiply unseen. The work continues in calendars and checklists, in tiny screens on counters, in the way a single sentence on a PA shapes a room. Quiet power is not the opposite of force. It is the presence of design. The freeze is not a headline. It is a setting. At Gate 12, the workstation UI refreshes with a thin red banner that reads, "Overrides disabled pending audit." The same banner propagates to the adjacent gates. A small hover note explains what to do instead of improvising. If verification is required, scan, confirm ID per checklist, and escalate to ops with a case number. A board agent can follow this without guessing. That is the point of design when stakes are human. Ops pushes a mobile device management update to the handheld scanners. The update adds a prompt that appears the moment anyone tries to apply a manual hold. It forces a reason code with examples and blocks progress if the code doesn't match policy. There is a small text field for notes, but you cannot continue without selecting a consistent application indicator. The system is not assuming good intent or bad intent. It is insisting on structure. In the back office, compliance opens a dashboard with a map of the hub. Gates under freeze appear as gray dots. Clicking a dot opens a shortlist: incidents in window, training status, and a timer counting down to recert window close. The timer is there to replace vibes with math. You can tell which stations are on track without a meeting. The supervisor sees her gate's timer and assigns people accordingly. Jamal's name appears beside a training slot he did not ask for, but earned. Customer experience tweaks the script for agents in the moment. If boarding pauses, the PA reads, "Boarding paused for verification. Thank you for your patience. No safety issue at this time." The script is printed on one side of a card and taped near the microphone. Words are equipment. If you do not issue them correctly, they misfire. An hour later, a new agent reads the card verbatim during a minor hiccup, and the room stays calm. No one becomes a symbol. Everyone becomes a traveler again. Legal finalizes the chain of custody log created on the fly. Each artifact is listed with a hash and a brief description. Zone B camera, still at 14 hours, 2 minutes and 17 seconds. PA audio clip at 14.6. Terminal keystrokes for device GB12A from 13. 55 to 14:15. The log has signatures from ops and station leadership. The existence of a clean list discourages creative memory later. Due process is preserved by clarity, not by theater. Union relations gets a short, respectful note. Access termination pending review, rights preserved, meeting scheduled, evidence list attached. The language is steady because agitated sentences belong to social media, not to policy. The agent who lost access is treated as a participant in a process, not a villain in a story. If she can show a system fault, there is a route back into the system. If she cannot, the exit is documented. Dignity is not at odds with accountability. It adds two small fixes from the incident. First, the intercom system now appends the agent's credential string to internal PA logs. Second, the terminal lock screen includes a visible reminder that keystrokes are recorded with timestamps and device IDs. Neither change requires training, both change behavior. Tools that speak in the first person make better coworkers. At the hub level, a standards review calendar appears on the shared schedule for the next 2 weeks. Sessions are 15 minutes and run every hour during shift changes. The module is simple: what counts as verification, how to apply discretion consistently, what to say aloud when you pause boarding, and how to escalate to ops without inflating a situation. The videos load quickly on old tablets because the team compressed them for bad Wi-Fi. Little choices signal respect. Passengers feel the downstream effects as absence. The next flight leaves on time. The next gate uses neutral language. The next crowd never lifts its phones. That is how you measure a freeze, working by how little attention the fix needs to function. The CEO's team drafts a one-page internal debrief for their own operations group. It lists today's 3 moves and the 2 design add-ons, recert window, and budget alignment. It includes a short note about why the word non-compliant should be retired from customer-facing announcements, except in safety incidents. The memo ends with the line that has become a house rule: discretion without consistency is bias at scale. Jamal finishes his shift with 2 more turns and hands off the scanner to the night crew. Before he leaves, the supervisor hands him a small envelope with a training slot and a note that reads, "Interim lead shadow, effective next week." He nods once, says thank you, and signs the log that tracks who has access to what. It is a small ritual, but rituals are how systems remember. On the aircraft, the captain signs the logbook with a simple statement: departure on time. Gate pause for verification resolved per standard. The words are uneventful, the way you want aviation to be. Somewhere between the paperwork and the quiet, a freeze turned from punishment into a product feature. It made the right thing easier than the wrong thing. That is the shape of authority when you design it instead of performing it. Systemic fallout is not a flame, it is a timetable. 48 hours after Gate 12, the hub's dashboard reflects the freeze as a gray bar across every station that touched the incident. Under each dot sits a progress strip: audit polls complete, training sessions logged, language updates acknowledged. Compliance publishes a first-pass heat map of selective holds over the past 90 days. You can see patterns that never make headlines, spikes on a late shift, valleys on weekends, an outlier cluster tied to one supervisor's rotation. The report does not assign motive, it assigns work. Legal wraps the due process meeting with the agent whose access was terminated. The packet is the same packet everyone has seen in pieces: timestamps, device IDs, hashes, transcripts. Representation is present, the tone is steady, the options are clear. If there is a system fault, the data will show it and access can be restored after training. If not, separation follows with documentation intact. The point is that the meeting is short because the record is long. No one invents memory under pressure. Customer experience replaces a line in the style guide so it cannot drift back. When boarding pauses for verification without a safety implication, say it exactly like this: no euphemisms. No labels that invite a crowd to perform judgment. A single sentence moves from memo to lanyard card to habit. Flight attendants get the same update in their briefing app, so cabin language matches gate language and rumors do not migrate through doors. IT ships 2 product tweaks born from pain. Manual hold now requires not only a reason code, but also a peer acknowledgement if a customer in the same cabin has been treated differently in the previous 5 minutes. If the peer does not acknowledge, the system flags the action, stamps it, and alerts ops. The second tweak is a tiny clock in the corner of the terminal that shows the retention window ticking. It changes behavior because it makes time visible. People act differently when they know the log will outlive their shift. Finance pushes the alignment everyone felt coming. Incentive dollars tied to on-time boarding cannot lift unless the station earns a green mark on equal application. The dashboard makes the rule mechanical. Turn one dial, watch the other move. The manager who likes speed learns that speed and consistency are not rivals, they are sequence. The money moves when the steps do. A note at the bottom says, "Thank you for protecting the brand by protecting the standard." It is not flattery. It is a reminder of what actually keeps planes full. HR sends Jamal a calendar invite he did not lobby for. Shift lead training, then a 90-day check for a permanent slot. He also gets a small stipend for completing the audit module first in his group and reading the record aloud when it mattered. The email does not call him a hero. It calls him what he is, a truth keeper. The supervisor assigns him to co-host the next 3 briefings, not as a cautionary tale, but as a picture of what right looks like under pressure. At corporate, the CEO briefs board and owners on the standard response baseline. 3 moves are now table stakes: terminate access pending review, freeze discretionary overrides, log and preserve artifacts. 2 moves sit beside them: set a recertification window and align budgets to standards. He explains why the word baseline matters. You do not rebuild a system every time. You apply the same template until behavior stabilizes. The board asks about cost. He answers with a number they recognize. Fairness is cheaper than damage control. On the line, small rituals change the texture of work. Agents narrate steps in neutral language when they pause boarding. Security notes timestamps aloud when they arrive at a scene. Supervisors keep their tablets open to the heat map during shift change. The laminated binder remains on the shelf, useful for the rule numbers, not for improvised authority. The intercom logs now capture credential strings without anyone having to ask. Tools speak first, people follow. The hub completes recert within the window. The freeze lifts with a quiet green tick on the dashboard, and the incentive pool begins to unfreeze in slices tied to attendance and performance on the module. Jamal's name appears on a shift lead roster draft. The station manager posts a note near the terminal that is smaller than a speech and larger than a rumor. Apply discretion consistently. Replace non-compliant with paused for verification when safety is not implicated. Treat terminals like cameras. It reads like a recipe card, which is the point. As a last piece of aftercare, Ops sends the full artifact packet to a training archive used across the network. Case study, anonymized, with the exact steps that turned a confrontation into design. New hires will see it next quarter, and the next traveler who looks like the CEO or does not will meet a process that does not care about faces. That is the only correct ending, not a win, a standard. The CEO lands, attends the summit, and signs the contract that launched the trip. When his team asks for a quote to share internally, he gives them 9 words. I am not here for noise. I am here for standards. Then he goes back to the work that makes those words less a slogan and more a schematic. The story of Gate 12 settles into logs and calendars and checklists, where it will do the quiet kind of good that never asks for applause. Aftercare begins where most stories stop. The plane is airborne, the gate is quiet, and the hub calendar fills with the work that keeps today from repeating. Compliance posts the recert schedule with 15-minute blocks layered across shift changes so no team is stranded. The module is short by design. Verify against the checklist. Apply discretion consistently within the same cabin and time window. Use the neutral PA line when you pause boarding. Escalate to ops with a case number, not a story. Attendance is captured by device ID, so completion is a fact, not a promise. The session ends with a simple walkthrough of the terminal prompts that now require reason codes and peer acknowledgments. No one leaves guessing. Customer experience pushes a 1-pager to crew and gate teams titled Language That Calms Rooms. It replaces vague labels with procedural phrases. It adds 2 do nots. Do not speculate aloud. Do not imply a passenger is the cause of an operational choice. Examples pull from the Gate 12 packet without naming it. When people know exactly what to say, they are less likely to fill silence with improvisation. Ops publishes a checklist to the station SharePoint and tapes it near terminals. Terminals are cameras, keystrokes are time-stamped, internal PA logs include credential strings. Underneath is a small box for agents to initial when they open a shift, a ritual that puts fingerprints on responsibility without turning anyone into a mascot. The goal is sobriety, not fear. The station manager holds a 5-minute stand-up. She does not dramatize. She names the changes, the timer on the dashboard, the incentive pool rule tied to a green mark on equal application. She adds a line that matters. If your discretion feels like guesswork, pause and escalate. Guesswork is how bias grows teeth. She assigns Jamal as interim shadow lead for 2 gates and routes him through the recert module first so he can spot questions before others ask them. He says yes, then returns to scanning because the best coaching move is steady work in view. Legal completes the due process step with the agent whose access was terminated. Dignity intact, facts intact, next steps clear. If training and a clean requal fix the gap, the door back in is real. If not, separation proceeds with documentation. There is no appetite for shaming, there's only appetite for consistency. The union rep receives the same log everyone else sees. Timestamps, device IDs, hashes. Arguments shrink in the presence of artifacts. IT ships a micro update that travels further than an email ever will. When a manual hold is attempted, the terminal now shows 3 anonymized snapshots from correct use cases before allowing the reason code menu. It is a visual speed bump that reminds an agent what the rule looks like on a normal day. Small nudges are better than big speeches. Finance tethers dollars to steps. The freeze on the incentive pool begins to thaw in slices as the station ticks off completion. Recert attendance, clean spot checks, correct PA language in 2 live incidents. The dashboard exposes the path. The manager cannot claim confusion. Reward arrives as predictably as consequence. The CEO's team sends a short thank you note that names people instead of abstractions. Ops for crisp execution. Legal for due process with clarity. Security for steady posture. The supervisor for acknowledging the packet and moving the room back to standard. Jamal by name with a line that matters beyond today. On system, truth keeper. The note is private. It is not crafted for public inspiration. It is a ledger entry of respect. Passengers who were present receive a courtesy email from customer experience. It uses the neutral phrasing that the style guide now carries. Boarding paused for verification. No safety implications. Thank you for your patience. A voucher is attached for the delay. No one is asked to become a witness or to forward a clip. The airline makes a repair and moves on. A week later, training captures the Gate 12 case study for the network. It is anonymized and stripped of personalities. The beats are the beats. A selective hold, a call to ops and legal, a freeze on manual overrides, a log of artifacts, recert within a window, incentive alignment, and a truth keeper promoted. New hires will consume it the way they consume arm door procedures, muscle memory built from repetition, not from outrage. The last act of aftercare is quiet and structural. Security adds a line to their arrival script, say the time aloud when you step into a scene. Supervisors keep a tab open to the heat map during handoff. Agents initial the terminal reminder before first scan. The laminated binder stays, now flanked by the 1-page memo and the lanyard card with the neutral PA line. Nothing dramatic, everything repeatable. The CEO does not schedule a debrief video or a victory lap. He asks for the recert attendance report, the audit heat map, and the budget release log to be mailed to his office monthly for a quarter, then quarterly after that. He adds 1 sentence his team knows by heart: keep the floor higher than this story. Then he moves on to the work that pays for standards to be more than slogans. Quiet power leaves rooms better built than it found them, and leaves a paper trail any auditor would be happy to trip over. Log everything. Endings that matter are checklists, not curtain calls. The aircraft touches down, the contract that justified the trip moves from draft to signature, and Gate 12 becomes what it was always meant to be: a case in the library, not a clip in the feed. The CEO sends 3 requests to close the loop. First, monthly delivery of the recert, attendance roster, and audit heat map for a quarter, then quarterly thereafter. Second, a standing note that incentive budgets stay tied to equal application so performance pay cannot outrun procedure. Third, a recognition path for the person who kept the record honest when it would have been safer to look away. Jamal receives that path as a calendar, not a headline. Shift lead training is confirmed. A mentor in station operations is assigned. A 90-day review is scheduled with a rubric attached, so growth is measurement, not opinion. He is thanked on record, not on stage, and given more access, because that is what trust looks like in a system that runs on credentials and clocks. Back at the hub, the freeze lifts as each requirement zeroes out. The dashboard ticks from gray to green. Training completions are stamped. Spot checks pass. Language on the PA tracks the new guide. Supervisors hand off tablets with the heat map still open. Agents initial the reminder on the terminal each shift. Terminals are cameras. Keystrokes are timestamps. Discretion is only a tool when it is consistent. You can feel the culture bend without anyone having to declare a new era. The agent whose access was terminated completes due process. If retraining and a clean requel fix the gap, the login returns with a note and a watch period. If not, separation is documented with the same respect shown on day one. Dignity and accountability stop being rivals once the facts travel as artifacts instead of arguments. The airline's network training archive adds the anonymized Gate 12 packet to the onboarding flow. New hires will meet it the way they meet door procedures and emergency briefings. The beats are simple enough to memorize, pause for verification with neutral language when needed. Apply any hold consistently across customers in the same cabin and time window. Escalate with a case number so ops can help instead of guess. Preserve artifacts so the story cannot be rewritten in the break room. When the steps live in muscle memory, fairness scales quietly. The CEO's closing note to his own team is shorter than the story that delivered it. Keep the baseline tight. Terminate access pending review when a tool is misused. Freeze discretionary overrides so the lever cannot do more harm. Log every artifact so memory has a map. Add the 2 anchors that make those moves systemic. Recert within a window. Align budgets to standards. Then he adds the 9 words he has used to end every situation like this one. I am not here for noise. I am here for standards. This channel exists to turn moments into mechanisms. If you have seen soft power dressed up as procedure, you already know why design beats debate. Do not escalate for spectacle. Audit for change. If you work the line and you have receipts that show equal application done right, send them. If you are a customer, learn the sentence that keeps rooms calm and records clean. Boarding paused for verification. No safety issue. Thank you for your patience. If you lead teams, print the memo that travels. Discretion without consistency is bias at scale. Subscribe if you want more stories that end in systems, not shouting. Share this if you want more rooms that use logs, not labels. And whatever side of the counter you stand on today, carry the 3 words that closed Gate 12 and will open better doors tomorrow. Terminate, freeze, log,